Border security and building a wall were part of the president's kickoff campaign speech last night, as we just reported. The nation remains deeply divided over what to do about the crisis at the border. Abigail Robertson talked with Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs about the issue and the gridlock that's been in Congress over it.
Who are pro-abortion, they will tell you that it's health care. And so we're trying to get it out and prevent you from being able to take that as a medical deduction. I mean, that's really what it's all about, because it's not health care. And so you shouldn't get the same tax treatment that you get for every other medical expense that you have for abortion.
And along those lines, what do you think about the Democrat push this week to remove the Hyde Amendment language from budget bills?
Well, I'm disgusted by it, quite frankly. I don't know if you saw any of the debate on issues surrounding abortion this week. They were sometimes very gruesome and beneath the dignity that you would expect to see in Congress, in my opinion. And I thank goodness for Congress, because I mean the U.S. Senate, because they will not pass a bill that has that in there, that removal of the Hyde Amendment. And the president has already vowed that he's going to veto something like that. So it really bugs the heck out of me, if you want the truth.
Would you like to see Robert Mueller testify?
Yeah, oh yes, I would. There's a lot of questions to ask Mr. Mueller. Everything from the origins of his team, their makeup, their biases that they have, that we know that they had, to additional information that we have found over time, and including all the way back to the FISA warrants, all the way back to how many times was George Papadopoulos spied on and Carter Page spied on, and by whom? And did he look at that? And we believe he looked at it, but he didn't put it out. And I think we'd also like to talk about, in my opinion, the quite frankly unprofessional way that he handled Volume 2, which would be the obstruction of justice. Because quite frankly, if you or I, and people, my colleagues on the other side keep saying, let's treat this as if the president's any other citizen. I'm all for that, because any other citizen, if you were looking at and they decided there's a no bill, in other words, they're not going to take an indictment on it, the world would not even know about it. But what he did is he basically wrote a almost 200-page screed against President Trump. That's a problem. I believe that they are going to get to impeachment. I think that that's where they're going to go. I think Nancy Pelosi is trying to do all she can to mollify them and yet satisfy them at the same time. You know, kind of keep them in check, but they're not going to stay there. And when that happens, we know already almost 2/3 of the country say, leave it alone, move on, do not impeach, it's a bad idea. And if you look at unaffiliated voters, polling regarding unaffiliated voters, it's almost 70% say, don't do that. And it's going to hurt them, I think.
Do you have any hope in this really partisan climate on the Hill right now that there will be any bipartisan, potentially an infrastructure bill or any legislation that both parties come together on?
I'm trying to be hopeful here. I don't think you're going to see an infrastructure bill. I think it's too late at this point. Nobody wants to have another shutdown. You might get there. I think you're going to see a CR, maybe a series of continuing resolutions. Let me explain what CR is. Those are short-term spending bills, and Congress does those because it can't seem to get its act together to pass a budget. With regard to immigration, you know, we can't even get them to give the humanitarian dollars that the president has asked in a humanitarian disaster on the border. And here's the way to think of it: you've got Border Patrol has beds for 4,000 people roughly, maybe as high as 5,000, but really it's closer to 4,000 according to the director's report. But they're holding 19,000 people. You can imagine the conditions, and many of them are in southern Arizona where it's hot, and they're not in an air-conditioned facility. They're in basically parking lots with awnings and big swamp coolers. It's going to get hotter and hotter there. We need that money to provide detention beds, and we can't get them to provide that money. So I am really discouraged by that.